Story warriors, storytellers, wherever you are, draw your chairs closer. Draw closer to this amazing fireside. It's a virtual fireside. And today, we have an amazing guest in studio for you. We are going to go where we have never gone before. This channel, the Story Warrior channel, dedicated to telling stories of amazing trailblazers, the unsung heroes with untold stories. Today, we found one of them for you. Mr. Gabriel Njinimbot is running for Maryland's 4th Congressional District. This is like no other day before. I am honored, I am delighted, I'm privileged to welcome into the Story Warrior channel studio, Mr. Gabriel Njinimbot. Did I pronounce your name right, sir? Please
Yes,
say.
you did. Yes, you sure did.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you so much. I am super excited to have you in this studio because you're doing something that nobody has done before. And if you know anything about me, I'm excited about people who are going to places where there's been no trail and they leave one. So tell us, sir, who is Mr. Gabriel Njinimbot?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on this beautiful day. Uh, it's um, it's an honor to be on your show, on your podcast, and thank you for everybody who is watching.
Thank you.
As you rightly said, Gabriel is my name, last name Njinimbot, which most people find it very difficult to pronounce, but the end is silent.
Mm.
And I'm originally from Africa, Cameroon, to be precise. And I moved here about 2 decades ago with $100 on me,
Mm.
with a very strong belief that I can make it if I put my mind to it.
Mm.
And I was grateful to have parents who raised me, even though they didn't have a chance to go to school, but sacrificed everything to ensure that I have some form of an education, which, is why I'm able to stand here today and speak to you.
Mm.
As you rightly introduced, I am running for the United States Congress,
Mm.
the United States Congress, not the state Congress, not the
Mm.
local council.
Okay.
Uh, and what that means is all of us are running for the United States Congress because that is what it's going to be all about. It's not. It has nothing to do with me. It
Yes,
has
sir.
more to do with the ordinary folks on the streets, the ordinary Joe,
Mm-hmm.
the guy who works 16-hour shifts, the
Mm.
janitor who struggles to earn a minimum wage, the student who studies all night and get up in the morning and go to school and come back and go
Mm.
to work. The
Mm.
vets who fought for this country and some of them died,
Mm.
and you see some of them on street corners holding signs asking for food or a place to stay. And it's all about the nurses who work 16 hours, not because they really want to, but because they must
Mm.
do so in order to survive and save money for retirement, pay tuitions for their children or grandchildren even.
Mm-hmm.
It's more so for our teachers
Mm.
uh, who make very small amount of money,
Mm-hmm.
even though they passionately believe in what they're doing.
Mm.
This is that class of folks that I am fighting for, because
Mm.
for a very long time they have been completely forgotten. It's also for our immigrant population who leave their countries and brave, travel thousands of miles either by air or sea or by land in some cases to come to a country they believe could make life different for themselves, their children, and those who were left back at home.
Hmm.
This is who I'm running for. This is who I'm fighting for. And in a couple of weeks, uh, that dream, that American dream, will be realized, not just for me, but for everybody I just talked about.
That is very interesting. You said something, and you've said quite a bit about the people that you are running to represent, the people that you believe strongly that you carry their voices to the
Yeah,
United States Congress. But you said you arrived here with $100.
that is
That
correct.
is gotta be daunting. I thought I got it bad because I came with over $1,000, but you got it really bad. Tell us, how do you begin to wrap your mind around settling down, finding your feet around when you have just $100 in your pocket? Tell me about your first night in America.
Well, I tell you the goodness of this country. I was fortunate that even though I had $100 with me when I arrived in Chicago,
Mhm.
a gentleman saw me. I think visually I was exhausted after, traveling for that long, like for a couple of days.
Mhm.
And he was gracious enough to find out where I came from, where I was going. And I had nobody picking me up from the airport. And this gentleman uh, was so gracious to give me a ride from the airport
Hmm.
to the school I was heading to.
Hmm.
But unfortunately, that school was closed. And uh, while I was in Chicago, the $100 I had, I was so confused at the airport until I missed the connecting flight. So I spent the $100 to sleep at the Holiday Inn, which I didn't even sleep at all because I didn't know where the heck I was.
Hmm.
And then so I had just like $15 with me because the hotel was like $85 that night. So this gentleman helped me out by taking me to the Greyhound bus station after asking me if I knew anybody in the country where I
Mhm.
could go to. I have my brother and my cousins here in DC, but and so he paid my fare for $60 and gave me an additional $20 to eat on the road in the Greyhound bus station, which was a 12-hour trip from Ohio to
Hmm.
DC. That's how I ended up in DC. And
Wow.
while in DC, I picked up a job working at a seafood restaurant in College Park, Maryland, where I waited tables, cleaned dishes, and picked up bottles and sold them, for 5 cents, 10 cents each. If you look at Heineken or Corona bottles, it says 10 cents on it.
Mhm.
That's how much I try to raise money. And I was a security guard as well. I
Mhm.
took computer classes. I became a systems engineer. I worked for Baltimore City government for 18 and a half years, for Prince George's County for 2.5 years as an IT consultant. And I was able to also go to law school with the help of student loans, thankfully. And I opened a couple of small businesses here in Maryland. And I published 5 books as well.
So
And today,
you've been very busy. You've been very, very busy. You've not had any time from the moment that somebody paid your fare
yeah,
to go from, I think you said Ohio to DC.
mhm,
Did, if you could take us back to that moment just for a second,
yeah.
did you see yourself 2 decades later running for U.S. Congress for the 4th Congressional District in Maryland? Did you see that 20 years ago or more?
No, no. As soon as I got into the country, one, I was excited that I'm in one of the best countries on the planet. And so I was focused more on trying to see how I can settle down and find a job, that I can pay my rent or pay for tuition, and then take it one step at a time. I did not see myself running for any office at any level, but which leads me to explaining why I decided to run. I
Yes.
don't know if that was your follow-up
Yeah,
question, but
we're coming to that already. Yeah. So
uh,
why, having been successful working for the city government, been successful owning your businesses, why then did you choose to say, you know what, I'm gonna run so that I can represent other people's struggles?
for a couple of reasons. One, uh, coming from Cameroon with $100 and starting off as a dish cleaning dishes and
Yeah.
waiting tables
Dishwasher. Yeah.
and in a restaurant,
Hmm.
and being a security guard and becoming a systems engineer and going to law school and raising a family of 3 children, get married and publishing 5 books. And you know I felt that it was it was very significant, important for me to give back to the country that has made me who I am.
Mm,
That was number one.
I see.
Number two, uh, over 2 decades, I realized that there's still this huge gap. There's still this huge disparity between the very rich and the struggling middle and below middle class folks.
Hmm.
And consistently over the years, that gap has consistently, keep widening because like I mentioned to you before, running for office is seems like it's designed for the rich and the wealthy.
Mm-hmm.
And so this and money has completely ruined our politics. Our democratic process is completely been skewed away by big donors and
Mm-hmm.
special interest groups and lobbies and things like that. And
Yes.
increasingly, that has kept the middle class and below middle class and the struggling class completely away from, the democratic process. And so I felt the need that in order for this class to be truly, genuinely represented, it
Mm-hmm.
has to have someone, or it takes someone who has experienced
Mm-hmm.
what this class of people experience in this country on a daily basis, to have a true, genuine representation for them.
Mm-hmm.
And when I look at Congress, especially the 118 Congress and the previous ones, it's been very dysfunctional, and the reason for such uh, chaos is because of self-interest and those who sponsor the campaigns of those members of Congress who are there right now. And so it would take someone like myself who collects no money from any special interest group, no lobbies, no big corporation, to be a true representation of the ordinary guy who struggles in this country on a daily basis.
That
And
is
so,
really
those two reasons, uh, are the main reasons why I decided to run. And, interestingly, it's energized this group
yes.
of folks who had completely, lost hope
You shut out.
about the democratic process in our country.
Mhm. So you are seeing a lot of momentum, a lot of energy and support from those quarters that have traditionally not always been represented. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay.
I have people who are going to vote for the very first time
No kidding.
in this
No kidding.
country as United States citizens, from immigrants and African Americans and
Hmm.
Latinos and Asians and
Mhm.
white folks. They're going to vote for the very first time because they can sense in their bones the genuineness of a candidate who's experienced
Reflects
everything
theirs.
that they've been through,
Yes.
and will vote for the first time. So the base is very energized, and I cannot wait for May 14th to see
That
what the outcome is.
that is a very significant finding there from the ground, and you wouldn't know until you step into the fray, until you said, this is me, these are the ideas that I stand for, these are the people that I represent. And then they started to come forward and say, we're going to vote for the first time. But the fourth congressional district is a very
Hmm.
significant one. It is one of the original 50 from 1788. And I'm thinking, wow, that is a very historic district.
Yeah.
So, what in your past has prepared you? Is it something about Cameroon, Bamenda, where you grew up?
Hmm.
Is it something about the opportunities that you've experienced in this country
Hmm.
that have actually given you the inspiration to say, you know what, I got to run? So, is it the Bamenda food?
Hmm.
Is it the Maryland food? Is it the Baltimore shrimps? What is it that you've consumed that made you feel like, you know what, I'm the guy. I'm not going to sit around and wait for someone else to do it.
It's a combination of different things, but more so is what I've experienced in Maryland, is
Hmm.
what I've seen in Maryland, is what I've seen in our public school system, by not just seeing it, but actually visiting the schools and speaking to the students and teachers. It's what I've seen speaking to police officers, and what I've seen visiting fire stations and speaking to veterans on street corners on hot summer days and frigid winter days. Is what I've seen by talking to our healthcare professionals, who come back from work so exhausted after working for 16 hours long. Is what I have seen speaking to ordinary folks at the gym, at the supermarket. It is what I've seen speaking to a guy who came outside of my house, picking as a trash truck driver,
Hmm.
who was a DJ at night. And it's more so for my neighbors who feel unsafe
Mm.
in their communities. It's more
Mm.
so about our senior citizens who are struggling every day to get prescription medication, which is not even not just that, is not easily accessible, but not affordable. So those things, in combination with the way I was raised by parents who believed in hard work and integrity and the need to help someone, elevate someone when they're down. And my working at a seafood restaurant right here in College Park, Maryland, and standing on my feet for 12 hours straight. And also my experience going to law school and opening a small business as an entrepreneur and publishing 5 books, raising a family. All these things combined is a true example of what ordinary folks in this country, including yourself and many other people watching this, their stories, we might be different, but our stories are all similar. But then it will require someone like you and I who's experienced this to be on that table when certain decisions are made about us by folks who have no clue what it means to be an immigrant.
Yes.
No clue what it means to send your child to a public school. No clue what it means to pay a mortgage, because those members of Congress right now, while they're paying their 4th, 5th, and 6th mortgage, we're here struggling with small car loans and sending our children to a struggling public school, a public school system that has 8% proficiency in math, a 24% proficiency in reading, and a declining 76% proficiency at graduation. Now, when you look at these things and you're energized, you will find a reason to run for office, because for so long we have settled with the status quo. We've settled with what establishment politicians, both Republicans and Democrats, show up only during election time and tell us what to do or what not to do. And as soon as we get their votes, they're gone and they come back in 2 years. This environment, this district is tired of that status quo. And they are eager and yearning to get a new energy, a new blood, for a new time, and new fresh ideas. Because they know that those who have been in politics for decades say the same thing, do the exact same thing over and over again, and nothing has changed. And so there is the need for a new breed of not just politicians, but leaders and people who've experienced what people experience every day and realize that we need to be on the table when these politicians who really do not care about us, but those who sponsor and donate millions on their campaigns, actually go sit on the table and discuss about us. So that time has come when we need to change and be on the table and speak for our own folks, which is part of the reason why I'm running.
That is insightful. And I was once a resident of District 4, believe it or not. Up until the
Okay.
pandemic, I lived in Upper Marlboro, and I was a traveling corporate executive, corporate trainer, and I would fly out every Sunday, work on the road for 5 days, and come back in on Friday night. So I lived in that district. That district is rich. It's full of hardworking people. Everywhere I went, around Bowie, around Upper Marlboro, around Bladensburg, or all those areas, they're paid places, where Lanham and so on. These people work very hard. So the
Yeah.
demographics of your district seems like it's very skewed towards significant population of that is black. About 55.2% is black, 25.1 is Hispanic, 10.7 is white, 5.2 is Asian, and 70% of that are white collar. So tell me, how are you reaching out to such a diverse group of blacks, Asians, Hispanics, whites, and all of that? Because demographics do count in elections.
Well, just before I get to your point, Prince George's County in the early 2000s was referred to, actually was known as the richest black county in the entire nation. When Wayne Curry was county exec, Prince George's County used to be referred to as the black bougie of heaven. That's how they used to describe Prince George's County. And that has declined steadily, as time went on, because of the crime, emerging crime and so on. And now Prince George's County is the second in terms of crime in the entire state of Maryland. But to answer your question as to how I'm reaching out to the very, very diverse population of Prince George's County, it's very easy. Uh, we're a grassroots campaign, and we go to folks wherever they are. We don't wait for them to come to us. You
Mm-hmm.
know, we don't have millions of dollars from of campaign contributions coming from special interest groups to push out TV ads. So what we do is we go to events at all hours a day, sometimes all the way up to about 3 a.m. in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
because on weekends people are out in
Mm-hmm.
events celebrating, either joyfully or sad something, somebody who lost. So we go out, knock on doors in the hundreds every day. We send text messages to everyone. We make phone calls. We go to events. We go to parades. We go to candidate forums. We go to mosques. We
Mm-hmm.
go to Latino events and so on. So it's very easy to meet every class or race of folks at any corner of
Mm-hmm.
the district as you go
Okay.
around. So it's very, very easy to see, the different class of folks who live in this district without necessarily going, driving too far off.
Yes. The good news is your district is pretty compact.
Yes,
Very, very compact, unlike in other states that are super vast. So
yes.
that's an advantage there. But in terms of outreach, how many staffers do you have, or how many campaign staff do you have on your team, and
Oh,
about how many doors are they knocking on every single day
oh, we have
across demographics?
we have a good number of people who are helping us in campaigning. Um, Off the top of my head, I think I have a group of about 65 organizers who are helping me to send text messages and share campaign literature.
Mm-hmm.
We have the community, the general community as a whole. I consider them, my staff and my organizers, because every time we send a message out, it's everywhere because folks are helping me every single time to spread this word. And if I ask for door knocking, people will come out and we knock thousands of doors every single day. In fact, right after this podcast, I have staff literally sitting out here waiting for me because we have to go into the neighborhood to knock on doors.
We'll make sure that we don't hold you too long. But tell us, who are your competitors? Who are you competing against? Are they entrenched, established candidates? Are they newer candidates like yourself?
Well,
Tell us something about them.
well, as of this morning, we are four of us in the campaign, but we started off about, I think we were three or four of us, and I was the only candidate opposing the incumbent as of about a couple of weeks ago until two more people stepped in about 40 days away to the election.
Mhm.
So I don't spend time looking at what the other candidates are doing. We're very concentrated and focused on what our campaign is doing, just to
Mhm.
make sure that we cut all the T's and dot all the I's and
Mhm.
prepare, get ourselves ready for election day, which is coming up in 14 days. Early vote in 14 days, and
Mhm.
the actual primaries on May 14th. So I think we're four of us on the ballot right now, the incumbent, two other candidates, and myself.
Yes, it's pretty tough to unseat an incumbent, but you've been in the race long enough to know how you can sense the ground, how the polls shaping up, how do you feel the energy? Sometimes it might be the polls, sometimes it might be the energy, but tell us which one is moving in your direction, so that more people need to pay attention and recognize that Mr. Gabriel Njinimbot is a true candidate that embraces the dreams and hopes of thousands and thousands of people from different communities. How are the
Yeah.
polls looking like?
Well, I believe that we're looking really good in this campaign because we have a lot of first timers. We've energized the forgotten folks.
Hmm.
And I do believe that we're going to be victorious in this election.
Hmm.
We haven't had any polls yet because we're concentrating on making sure that those who've been forgotten for a very long time and those who have lost hope
Hmm.
in a democratic process in the country, we reach out to them and ensure that they know that there's a new candidate who understand what they're going through every day in this country. And every time we speak to one of them, they will go out and bring five more people who have not voted and who feel like right now we have some sense that a true candidate who represents them is going to be in Congress. So we haven't done any polls yet, but we have a really good feeling that we've energized enough people to, come out and vote early and by mail, and also on the primaries on May 14th. We're looking good. We're looking good on this. We just want to wait till May 14th and see how this plays out.
Okay. One of the biggest outcomes of winning is you get into Congress, you begin to contribute to the shaping of new laws or introduction of new bills that would impact people's lives. Is there something top of your mind that you believe, you know what, if I make it through, I want to be able to start with this. I want to be able to propose this either in collaboration with others, or something you really feel very passionate about that would impact the lives of those thousands and thousands of people that live within the 4th Congressional District and perhaps the larger country?
Yeah, so actually, that's a very, very good question. One of the things I did before I started to run for this office was to make sure that what I want to fight for in Congress is not what I think. It's what the constituents think. And I had a chance to speak to thousands of people who, for the most part, 90-something% of them had 2 issues in mind that they would like to see different, which coincidentally matched with what I thought. One is education. Nelson Mandela said something. He said that if you want to change the world, educate its people. The folks in our district believe and know factually that education is the number one issue they would like to see completely different or change in the district. Now, I know that education is not the priority at the federal level and is mostly controlled by the state. And I've heard this, before, but I believe that it is time when the federal government pay more emphasis on the education of its people, its children, its students, because they're the backbone and the bedrock and the future leaders of this country, regardless of what domain you look at. The United States military can be all powerful, but if its children, its citizens, are falling behind in education, 8% in math, 24% in reading, 76 of them would graduate, and the numbers go on and on, that would make America not the greatest military on earth. So I believe that, and I will look forward to the fact that when I win the race, I would try to pass proposed legislation or co-sponsor legislations where the federal government should pay more attention to the education of the students. By the way, we have competitions coming from all over the world where if we do not pay attention, our own children will not be able to keep up with the competition. So that's one thing I want to make sure that we should pay close attention to. We spend $300 million a day in Afghanistan, and when we were fighting the war in Afghanistan, $300 million a day in 20 years was $3.2 trillion. But in schools, in our public schools, we have overpopulated public schools, less teachers who get paid less, and even with the pay they have, they use their own money to buy school supplies for our students. That needs to change. I mean, there's a string of other issues that we face as a country. Climate change, women's rights, senior citizens, safety, and so on. But Congress should listen to its people more than what they believe or perceive is what we need to fight for. I think that with that kind of shift in paradigm, we would cater for the needs of the American people more than we cater for the needs for ourselves. I'll give you an example of minimum wage. When we pass laws for a minimum wage that nobody can live on, that defeats the whole purpose of representation. I always but I always say that we should pay members of Congress a minimum wage, and so they could see how that feels.
Talking about minimum wage, I may represent maybe thousands and thousands of people in the field of education, educators like myself. I
Mhm.
mean, involved in corporate education. There are others who are involved in elementary or secondary or post-secondary education. We're all educators, and they don't get very highly paid. Now you're very passionate about education, and we know that besides those, the field of education, there are also many others that are very they get paid very little.
Yeah,
What kind of and they work extremely long hours.
yeah.
What kind of bills, what kind of legislation can a freshman congressman bring forth, either alone or in collaboration with others, that
Hmm.
can shape this fragment of society that is really struggling? Minimum wage, long hours, two
Hmm.
jobs, three jobs.
Hmm.
Do the people at the top even know about this? And what can you bring to the to those who make laws that this is a serious problem out there that they've never experienced, but someone like you has experienced it?
Well, I think that one of the ways we could do this is actually have the members of Congress actually go to a fire station where you have somebody who's worked there for 48 straight hours. And because there's not many people who are willing to work as firefighters because of the kind of money they get paid, let them go visit fire stations and see folks who are stuck in there for 48 hours, sometimes 3 days, because there's nobody to replace them. Talk to a healthcare professionals, and they will tell you they work 16 hours straight. If you were to work 16 hours straight for 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, you don't even have time to take care of yourself, much less help your child do his or her homework. So we need to get to the reality of things. We need to get some of these folks who, by the way, shouldn't be there for 45 years in Congress, uh, to face the reality of life. Unfortunately, most of them aren't, because they have billionaires and special interest groups that pay for their campaigns. And so they don't really take time enough to go down to the streets and talk to the folks who keep this country running every day. So I know, as a freshman congressman who is trying to see that something can be different, it's not going to be easy, because I'm going to face challenges from the
Yes,
establishment, Republicans and
without a,
Democrats
without
who
a doubt.
have billions, who are sponsoring, billions of dollars in sponsorship. But that's not going to stop me. I will still try to make sure that uh, I make this known that there's people who need help, and we should try to scratch our stomach before scratching our back. While we sponsor wars overseas, we want to make sure that our own folks are, taken care of. By the way, we need to student loans. That's something we need to completely cancel, because if we can spend 300 million in Afghanistan a day, we could cancel some student loans over here. Including my own, by the way.
I know even this former President Obama, he had not paid off his student loans for a long time, until maybe when he was a president. But it talks about the excessive and exaggerated state in which student loan issues have become. It's almost a burden on the back of everyone who has
Yeah.
afforded or who has gone to school. Should that be the case? That's not for me to make the judgment. But there's something that I see coming up here. The people, you call them the forgotten folks. That's the name
Hmm.
you use. And I want to use your word.
Yeah.
What can you look into the camera and tell the forgotten folks, whether they're of African descent, whether they're of European descent, whether they're of Asian descent, whether
Hmm.
they're of Hispanic descent, they live in your district, and by God, you become their representative? What would you look at them in the face and tell them, this is one area where I want to make your lives a little bit better?
I would tell them, first of all, they need to go out and register to vote. That's number one. Number two, they need to go out and vote. Because what's happening is, when they don't go out and vote, the establishment loves it, because they know that, they would continue to support them
The sound quality
and
is
push
feeling a
their
little
own.
bit. Okay, good now.
Yeah. So what I will look at them in the face and tell them is that for the first time in a very long time, you have someone who genuinely cares about your well-being and your welfare. But this person can't go into Congress if you don't go out and vote. And if you do go out and vote, and Gabriel goes into Congress, number one, your the education of your child, the well-being and welfare of your children, your schools, your environment, the safety of your neighborhood, we're going to push that into Congress. We're going to ensure that your senior citizens have access to affordable health care. And when they need the prescription medication, they can easily access it and get it. We will ensure that those firefighters who work so long and those first responders should get paid well. We will ensure that minimum wages should change. We will push to ensure that if you work, if you are able and willing to work, you should get paid accordingly. But these things will not come out easy. It wouldn't come around easy because as a fresh congressman, we're going to get pushbacks. But with their support, we're going to stay in Congress and bring many more people who would join the fight because we cannot settle for the status quo. We cannot settle for this status quo. We could do better only if we come out and vote and get a true representation who is not sponsored, by the way, by any special interest group. That's
So
how it's been
your
changed.
campaign is entirely grassroots driven, as you said. So what
Completely.
if somebody wants to contribute who is, yes, certainly not a special interest,
Mhm.
an ordinary Joe, a normal guy, an immigrant, a non-immigrant who espouses your message? What should they do to be able to contribute to support you?
Well, go to my website, gabrielforcongress.com, and click on donate. And it will take you to a step-by-step process of donating $5, even $1, $1, $2, $3. That's the kind of donation we've been getting: 5, 10, 15, 20, $100 contributions. And that's how.
GabrielForCongress.com. Is that right?
Yes, yes,
And
gabrielforcongress.com, and click on donate.
click on donate. Perfect. Now, who inspired Gabriel when you were growing up? Who inspired you when you arrived here? Is it a guy who paid your fare from from Chicago, Ohio to DC? Who inspired you? Are they some leaders? Is it your parents? You said they could not read or write. I could relate to that. My mom could not read or write. But who are the people that have actually inspired you to say, you know what? I am going to rise up and work harder and dream bigger and go do things that nobody else has done.
I think that most of it came from my parents, knowing that they grew up not being able to go to school and have an education and obviously have a job. I thought that I don't want to be to go through the same process and the same suffering that we went through when I was growing. I don't want my children to certainly go through the same process. And also, uh, my inspiration comes mostly from the the things I've seen around. I see that most children growing up are looking for a role model
Mhm.
and somebody who they can look up to and believe in their own selves. And so my inspiration is mostly from my parents, my own self. I'm very self-driven, and myself driving. The reason why I'm self-driven is because I know that there's a lot of young boys and girls who are looking at me right now and seeing themselves that someday they cannot just run for Congress, but they could run for president. So that motivation in there is what pushes me every single day to see that uh, I can make a difference. And also, what pushes me even further is to see that wherever I reach, the ceiling that I will stand on will be the floor for the young ones who are growing and looking at me or watching at this show and seeing the things I'm doing. So obviously, some people have inspired me in terms of leadership. Barack Obama is certainly one of them. Um, and uh, Mario Cuomo is the former governor of New York, governor of New York of late. Is one of the people who inspired me also, and also Abraham Lincoln.
Okay. Those are of those I definitely and I've read about some of them, and they are very public known figures. So anybody who is looking for inspiration can get some of that, a great depth of that, by reading about Lincoln, humble beginnings.
Yeah.
And you've written a book that talks about you rising from, I think, very humble beginnings. What is the main message of that book? If you don't mind to give us just a synopsis.
Yeah, the very first book I published was titled From Meager Beginnings, The Power of Dedication, Persistence, and Consistency.
Mhm.
Um, there is this notion that if you come from a background that's not wealthy, not well connected, you're almost done. But I'm an example of someone who came from a background whose, like I said, parents with no formal education, but believed that I can achieve whatever I put my mind into. And so through hard work, dedication, and persistence, I have been able to push through a lot of things up to the point where Gabriel, a young man who came from Cameroon, is actually on the same ballot as Joe Biden and other members of Congress. That's all through um, hard work, dedication, persistence, and
Yes, sir.
consistency.
Yes, sir.
And it's just to let folks know that wherever you're watching this and feel like the wall is crumbling on you and you have no hope on, getting yourself ahead or nobody supporting you, you cannot give up. You
Mhm.
just cannot give up, because if you do, you're giving up on yourself and
Mhm.
giving up on a whole bunch of people around you.
Mhm.
But through hard work, dedication, persistence, and consistency, those barriers will come down. Those mountains will shift, and your naysayers will be completely surprised by what you could do.
And it looks very likely that some of your own naysayers, the doubters, would have to chew their words and swallow them, because you've been working at this right from the onset. When someone first told me about your candidacy, asking me to do something directly, I wasn't able to commit to that, because the organization within which I was working at the time, I did not have the right platform to stand on.
Hmm.
But as the Story Warrior channel has been growing bigger and bigger over the months, we're getting people from all over the world. That's when I decided, you know what? We do have a way of helping, maybe not directly, but indirectly. And now it turns out we're able to reach a lot of people that live within your district, and we will do whatever we can. Maybe instead of contributing directly to the campaign, we're going to put some money so that more people can get to know this through Facebook marketing. But more importantly, I also want you to take a step back and say, if your parents were here with you today, just
Hmm.
as they are parents of other people, what would you tell them is the greatest gift that they gave you? I'm not talking about financial, I'm not talking about material. What's
Hmm.
the greatest gift they gave you as a young man growing up in Bamenda? What's the greatest gift they gave you that has given you the courage to do what I believe very few other Africans who are immigrants, first generation immigrants, have done?
Hard work, respect. Hard work, respect, and treat everyone else as you would treat your own self and as you expect them to treat you.
Hard work,
Those
respect,
three things.
and treat
Hard
everyone
work,
else as you want
yes.
to be treated. Those are powerful values that I believe people from Cameroon embrace. Those are powerful values that I believe people from Bamenda embrace. Those are universal values that people from everywhere, whether they're Asian, they're Hispanic, they embrace: hard work, respect, and treat others as you want to be treated. So I believe
And pray.
and what? Pray
And pray, yes.
and pray. Okay.
Yeah.
Talking about prayer. Okay. Now I'm not specialized in prayers, but I'm certainly going to pray when I'm not on screen. But come the day when the results are announced,
Hmm.
what dream do you have for yourself and your family? What dream do you have for the people in your district? What dream do you have for US at large on the day that the results are announced?
So the day this result is announced and we're gonna win this race, it would mean one thing to me, that we all rise as one. And succeeding means we all are succeeding, and that everyone with equal chances should be able to grow. And if one person is succeeding and everyone, a great majority of the people are not succeeding, that's not the definition of success. So my dream, and which is the same dream I will have for my children as well as the children of everyone in this district, is that we all should rise together.
That everyone should rise together. That
Yes.
sounds very clear, very precise. So now I want to end with just one or two, three simple, short questions. Hopefully, you give us very short answers.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the first one is, if you wanted to have coffee with a certain member of Congress today
Mm-hmm.
and pick their brain on how to shape your campaign, who would that person be?
Well, it's in Congress. It's very, very difficult to pick somebody you have coffee with because I don't really know these folks like that, and a great majority of them are part of the establishment, and they don't even read, they don't even look at me as someone they can have coffee with. So I don't know any of them. I would like to
Shoot.
have coffee with until I
Okay.
know who they are and what they
Okay.
really stand for. I mean, I know what most of them stand for, and I know that they do not stand for ordinary people like us.
Mhm.
And so I don't want to have coffee with any of them until I know fully who they are. But there is a couple of them in Congress. Let's call them the squad. I don't know if you're aware of those, Ian Omar, Ocasio Cortez, and a whole bunch of
Yes.
other
I've
ones.
heard about the squad. Read about the
Yes,
squad quite a bit.
for the folks. Uh, but I would rather have coffee with the constituents of this district because they're the ones I want to hear from and know exactly what they want me to change. And
Mhm.
then once I get in the office, I will find out who I can sit down and have coffee with.
Okay, fair enough. I appreciate that. Now, the great state of Maryland is a very historic one. Recently, there was an accident. I don't know if that's within your district.
Hmm.
Uh, and I know it's been a tough one, but there's some people in Baltimore that maybe benefit from your message. What would be your message to those who are losing their incomes as a result of the collapse of the bridge?
Well, Baltimore City is in. I work for Baltimore City. I used to see that bridge from City Hall every day for 18 years. And so that's really personal to me as well. And I know that the collapse of the bridge affects not just Baltimore City, but the entire Northeast corridor and maybe the entire United States of America because billions of dollars in worth of shipping came through that port. So it's affecting not just the locals, but and not just people in the state of Maryland, but people across the country. In fact, I have people in China who couldn't send the shipping containers because the port was down for a couple of weeks. I think it's still down. But my message is that the President Biden's administration is funding. I think they're completely funding the bridge for 60. I forgot what the exact number is, but I don't want to give a wrong number. But they agreed to pay some of the money, or if not all of it, to bring the bridge back to bring the port back to normalcy. And so all I would say is that my sincere condolences to the folks, to the families who lost those who were working on the bridge. And I think they still have the bodies underwater up to now, and that they should just hold it strong. And for the folks who are depending on the port to survive, just hang in there because I think the federal government is going to do something about it, and it's just a matter of time.
Okay, the final one is just to hopefully get some of our viewers smiling or just chuckling a little bit. You walk into a campaign location, you want to speak at a late night event, and they say, hey, Mr. Gabriel, you are running, you need some energy, go to the tables, get something and eat before you speak to this audience. You go to the table, there's achu, there's fufu and jama, there's kati kati, there's water fufu and arrow, and there's bongo chobi. Which one of these would you grab to get a bite before you go and speak?
I would go in each one of them bowls and take one of each and put it in my bowl, because that's a true combination of what the district actually looks like. It's a combination of achu, bongo chobi, kati kati, and what was the other ones?
And water fufu and a whole lot more. I'm sure there's food from Ethiopia, from all over the place, from Asia. So thank you for taking the time and sharing your vision for running for the 4th Congressional District. And thank you so much for not only taking the time, but also for committing yourself. It's a very, very exhausting process. And thank you for finding the time to come talk with us. For Story Warriors, Story Warrior affiliates and associates, please go look at GabrielForCongress.com, contribute, support this movement, but above all, go and vote. Invite your friends, remind your aunties, remind your uncles, remind your friends of friends to pay attention to a candidate who embraces the struggles of an ordinary person. Not one born with a silver spoon, with a golden spoon, but one who has been rising up and working hard every single day, came to this country with $100 in his pocket, and look at what he's doing. Look at the courage. Thank you so much, Mr. Njinimbot. We hope and we pray for a great success and for great service above all. Thank you so much, sir.
Sure. Thank you for having me. It was an honor.
Thank you, sir. All the very best. We are praying. We're sending you all the support, and we hope you go all the way and represent the common guy. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I'm going to give one blast of the Vuvuzela from South Africa. All right, just a quick one. Thank you. I know you have to go. Have a great day, sir.
You too. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.